Hello, my clock says 12, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar hosted by Learning.com and featuring our fabulous partner, Common Sense Education. My name is Abby Daniels and I'm the Senior Marketing Manager here at Learning.com. On behalf of all of us, we want to wish you a very happy Computer Science Education Week. We're delighted you are taking the time out of your day to celebrate and learn with us. We have a few housekeeping items to go over before we get to our featured speakers. First, we want to invite you to tweet about our webinar today, tagging us and Common Sense Education and using the hashtag #WhatCompSci means. And on that note, we wanted to share a little bit of information about a Twitter contest we have going on. We invite you all to participate. It's very easy. Simply share a photo and a description of what computer science means in your class and at your school using the hashtag #WhatCompSci means. You'll be entered to win this fantastic swag bag, which includes a $25 Amazon gift card and Ollie the Owl stickers for a whole class of students. We know that computer science takes many shapes and forms, from learning mouse skills to computers, to keyboarding, to coding and programming. We hope you'll share with us what computer science means and looks like at your school or district. For those who are not familiar, a little information about Learning.com. We've been a trusted partner in K-12 education for over 20 years and work with districts in all 50 states in the US. We also work with international partners. We provide an online curriculum for teaching digital literacy skills and computer science to K-12 students that is sold to schools, districts, and states. We offer one of the most comprehensive computer science and digital literacy curriculums on the market with over 1,000 lessons in our library. Our curriculum covers IT fundamentals and keyboarding, online safety and digital citizenship, including Common Sense Education's content that can be accessed through Learning.com, business applications, coding and computational thinking, and we just started offering cybersecurity curriculum. At Learning.com, we see computer science as a continuum that includes a range of skills that students must know how to do to be successful in our digital world. And when we think of computer science, sometimes we think of coding, programming, algorithms, but it's really much more than that. In our review of the CSTA standards for computer science, we found that IT fundamentals and networks content makes up 23% of those CSTA standards. Online safety and digital citizenship make up 18% of those computer science standards. And data visualization and analysis makes up 13%. So that's 54% of the whole pie chart here of the standards that make up the computer science standards. So what we traditionally think of as computer science, coding, algorithms, is really just half of the pie. At Learning.com, as I said, we see computer science as a continuum that includes critical digital literacy skills in addition to coding and programming. These are all the skills that fit together to help students become creators, problem solvers, and responsible users of technology. And on that note, I would like to introduce our partners and speakers today from Common Sense Education. Common Sense Education supports K-12 schools with everything educators need to support students' learning in a world full of media and technology. Their innovative award-winning digital citizenship curriculum prepares students with lifelong habits and skills, supports teachers with training and recognition, and engages families and communities with helpful tips and tools. Schools everywhere rely on their free curriculum, expert advice, and EdTech ratings to help kids thrive. Our first speaker today is Sue Thotz, and she is Senior Program Manager at Common Sense Education, co-founder of Equity in Action California. Sue began working for Common Sense in 2011 by providing support and training for educators and administrators on issues of digital culture and technology implementation. As a co-founder of Equity in Action California, she has facilitated conferences that recognize the importance of culture and identity and strive to amplify marginalized voices in the education technology space. Prior to Common Sense, Sue was a researcher and educator. Sue holds a master's degree in public health and undergraduate degree in zoology and chemistry. She is joined by Dr. Sharisa Chan out of the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools office. Sharisa is a STEAM and computer science advocate, microbit champion, Scale California member, equity warrior, and veteran K-12 educator. Sharisa has been able to make connections with staff and students, especially in the domains of student engagement, personalized learning, digital citizenship, STEAM integration, computer science, as well as the use and leverage of digital technology to improve student learning outcomes through personalized and equitable classroom pedagogies. Sue and Sharisa, I will now turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Abby. I think that I'm going to try to share my screen here, and let's see how we do. Yes, we're good. All right, excellent. So thank you so much for having us here today. I am Sue, as she was introducing us, and this is Dr. Chan, and we are here to talk today about digital citizenship as a foundation for computer science creators. So as Abby mentioned, about 18% of these CSTA standards, these computer science teaching standards, are centered on digital citizenship. So a lot of the work that we're talking about today is going to be highlighting what that means and how to build that foundation and give some examples of ways in which we can help our students with some of these digital citizenship skills, but also, relate them specifically to the computer science skills that they are going to need to be successful creators as they work in our classrooms and eventually out into the field. So we're going to try something today. And so as Abby mentioned, we'd like you to have your phones with you at some point today. We're going to be doing a little bit of interaction, and you are welcome to set up your phones to bring in a tool called Menti. And so if you have a chance, grab your phone and you can go to menti.com and enter the code 1764007. And that should be located right up. I'm reading it off of the top up there. Don't worry if you didn't catch that code. It's going to be on all the rest of these slides. And at some points, we're going to ask you to jump in and interact and share some stuff with us. But by all means, feel free to sit back, follow along, and join us. We're going to tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do. There you go. Oh, I already see your reactions in there. That's so fun. This is the first time I'm using this tool, so I'm going to try something new today. And I hope that you all are able to jump in at some point and let me know what you think and how it goes. You can also, I believe, use the chat that's down here in the GoToWebinar tool as well. I think that should work. So as Abby mentioned, I work with Common Sense, and this is who I am, and this is what I do. Sharisa, do you want to say anything else about who you are and what you do in your line of work? Oops, you're muted, I think. Sorry, one more time. Oh no, I can't hear you. That's okay. Try that one more time. I swear we just had her just a second ago. No, I can't hear you. Is it just me? Oh, well, I will speak on behalf of Sharisa and say, while she's figuring that part out, by all means, tell us where you all are located and where you're coming from, and then we'll see. I just want to see who all is in the room. If you want to make sure that your chat is set to all, to the entire audience, if you can do that, tell us about who you are and where you're from, if you can do that in the chat. But Dr. Chan, I invited her here because she has such a wealth of fantastic experience. Hey, did I hear you?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
I just switched to my MacBook mic instead, so I'm glad it worked.
Perfect. Yay!
I didn't really want to share anything else about myself. And I'm excited to be here today.
Actually, the reason I asked Dr. Chan is because she's the practitioner. She's the one who's in the classrooms and visiting schools and training folks, and obviously has this huge wealth of experience when it comes to computer science, and also has a strong passion for digital citizenship and culture. And so, I can talk about common sense resources, but Dr. Chan is the one that actually, knows how to put them all to use and has some great examples for us today. So that is why we are doing this together, and because I just really like her a lot. So, So what we wanted to know from all of you, if you are familiar with digital citizenship, you already know a lot about the background and stuff, but Dr. Chan was going to share with us some of these ideas about what digital citizenship is and what it means to her. So by all means, please take it away.
Okay, so one of the things I really like to point out, especially thinking about my own past with teaching and educating students with digital citizenship, is that when I first started teaching it, it was more of don't do this, don't do that. But really, it's not what it's about. It's more of, hey, this is how we can be a great citizen in an online community. This is how we need to interact with one another. It's more of the do's rather than the do nots. I mean, of course, we want them to know both, but it's more of this is how we engage in these type of situations online, in a chat, or in as we're creating something, as we're coding and programming. We want to make sure that we're being mindful of how we're doing this and engaging in a certain community with other individuals. So for me, there's just been that shift of it's not just don't do this, don't do that. It's, oh, try creating a creative password because it will protect
Right.
your information, or a passphrase, things like that. These are how we can be a better digital citizen. So that's my 2 cents on that. It's just, there's a lot of really great things. It doesn't always have to sound like, no, no, no. It could be, this is how we can engage in this appropriately.
Agreed. And 100%, I also just want to share that, that is why we're here. We're talking about the great things that our students are creating. It isn't just about what to stay away from, but it is about how you're going to be contributing to the world. And so I enabled the comments on this Menti. And so if any of you have ideas about what does digital citizenship mean to you, you're also welcome to share some of those, and we'll be able to see them on the screen here too. So when it comes to computer science, or your own opinions, please feel free to share some of that as well. And so I'm going to go back to this Google slide here. So when it comes to how do you think of digital citizenship and how does it connect with computer science, we have our own ideas that we're going to share today, but I want to start with what all of you are thinking when it comes to the ways that computer science relates to digital citizenship. So I have a word cloud here that I would like you to all think of. So how do you, exactly, safety might be one great way for people to think about, how does digital citizenship and computer science relate to each other? So safety, we definitely want to make sure that our students are first and foremost safe when it comes to their interactions with technology. For sure, we want to make sure that they feel like they are in safe places, not just physically, we worry about things like the interactions that they have that can lead to safety. Awareness, understanding, who they are dealing with, kind of how do they make decisions, participation in community, absolutely. When you create, you are part of a larger community, right? You are participating by making. We want our students to have compassion, equity. I love these words. I love these words. Thank you so much for sharing what you think of when it comes to digital citizenship and computer science creators. Teresa, did you have anything that you see that sticks out to you?
I'm just loving this. Yes, I love the fact that there's compassion on there, just considering who you're going to be working with or who you're sharing information with, or even for yourself as a person consuming things, having compassion for what other people might put out there. So I love that. Identity, definitely, that is huge. That piece of being allowed to be who you are and accept who others are as well. Huge. I love this.
Yeah, I love this too. And I did see a lot of kindness, being knowledgeable, right? Not only do we gain knowledge, but we're sharing our knowledge whenever we create in this computer science world. And so being a digital citizen and is being a contributor to the online space. It is about creating the world that you want to see. And so, with all of this copyright, yes, we will definitely get to copyright. We will definitely, being a decision maker, having that foresight, having that forethought, and anticipating what other people might need. So these are all great answers. I hope that you see all of these plus more today as we begin, thinking about these connections. And so, so here are the 5 ways that Teresa and I thought about, being creators in the computer science space and what those creators need to have. And so the first one we talked about was, being empathetic and having these social emotional skills And I'll talk about what those skills are and how you can teach those in the computer science context. We'll talk about the greater social good, which I think a lot of you touched on. When you are a creator, you want to create a world that is compassionate, is kind, does good things for, for others, and, doing that design to be humane and to be good in the world. Understanding that need for privacy, that's a huge part of digital citizenship, not just like creating ideas and sharing ideas that have privacy in mind. I think that for not just yourself, but for others as well. Copyright and fair use, not just taking other people's stuff, right? But giving credit to people and understanding your own rights as a creator. And then the last part was just being aware of the influence. All of our students are not only creators, they're oftentimes consumers. They are very much consumers. And so understanding what that influence is on them, right? So yeah, so that's where we're at here. These are the 5 points we're going to talk about today. So I hope you see all that. Creators need to be empathetic, right? It's part of the whole design process, right? Number one, empathy, right? When you design, when you create, you need to be empathetic. And we really have a focus here on SEL skills. And so a lot of these pieces that I'm going to show you in the next few slides and the CSTA standards describe students' ability to empathize, have strong relationship skills, really be able to make those good decisions. And so what I have here is, I'll give you these slides at the end here, but this is hyperlinked to the CSTA standards. If you've never seen the computer science teaching standards, like this is a great place to start. If you're already familiar with it, right? So this is a hyperlink in the slide. And then over here, I've also hyperlinked the CASEL standards, right? What is CASEL? The Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. That is what CASEL stands for. So I've shared, what are the 5 pieces of when it comes to social and emotional learning, including managing your own emotions, right? Making good decisions, having self-awareness. How does this all contribute to helping our students be good creators and designers? So that is what I hope to explore here in a second. And it's kind of cut off on the side here. But these are the specific CSTA standards that I just pulled, I just walked through and looked at them real quick. There are words in here. Do any of these stand out to you when it comes to like SEL and empathy and such? Teresa, do you see anything in here?
Definitely being respectful and responsible, the diverse perspectives for sure, incorporating feedback, all of the ones that are highlighted, really collaborating with many contributors, and then the benefits and drawbacks of choices, that whole cause and effect thing. Everything I do has a reaction of some sort. So, let me make sure I'm on the right track, especially when it comes to SEL.
Yeah. So it's not just a good to do, it is part of a standard is what I'm trying to point out here, right? It's not just like a little part of that, of the whole coding, as she said, as Abby said, like coding, algorithms and program, all that stuff, that's all great, but it has to come within a context. And so I'm sharing here a skills and progression chart that Common Sense has, where we have taken each of these little boxes is a 15-minute lesson, and you see the objectives of this lesson. So, in the slides that I'll give you later, you can click onto this box and it will take you to this Google Doc that has each of these lesson plans all laid out for you. And each of them is about 15 minutes. And so if you're focusing, with your students, so these are the grade bands up top, and in the US, these are the grade bands. And so if you're working with high school students and you're talking about, screen time and how much is too much, right? We want our students to be able to maintain a healthy balance. When they are designing, they need to understand how to make, build in some breaks or build in some opportunities for students to be able to step away, right? That could be part of what it is that they're creating. Or when it comes to our own relationship skills, right? Gaming with positivity. I know your students, a lot of your students are on Scratch, right? And they're making games on Scratch. Can they think about the ways in which some of these skills, like they're able to show empathy toward their fellow game players? Are they able to create games that take other people's perspectives into consideration? So these are the kinds of SEL skills that you'll need if you are building a game, or if you are building a program of some kind to do what it is that you need. So this is a whole plethora of SEL skills, you know, for all grades, kindergarten through 12th grade, just to get you started with a 15-minute primer on some of these skills. So yeah, so I just thought I'd throw that in there. Anything else, Teresa? You good to go?
As I'm thinking about everything that you're saying as well, just as we talk about computer science and students possibly programming or creating something, thinking about things that they could create for each other, as you mentioned, that empathy piece, but even if it's as simple as programming how they feel or developing something where they can share how they feel, where they program an app or something, reminding them, hey, we need to think about others as we do this, which I think is a perfect segue into our next piece.
Yeah, there we go. All right, you're so smart. Creators are building our future, right? We are counting on the students that we are teaching today to design our future in a lot of ways, right? They need to consider the greater social good. And so Sharisa has put in a couple of, you know, ways in which she has encouraged her students to do exactly that. So I just wanted to make sure that I point out the standards that are associated with some of these, you know, not just understanding personal relations and personal SEL skills, but how do you design for a greater world? And understanding, you know, that these technologies influence and are influenced by cultural practices, right? These are things that are huge, right? Accessibility of design, right? When we design for others in mind, we have to consider everyone. It isn't just about able-bodied, you know, folks that look just like us. We have to consider, you know, folks who might need to access this information at some point that may not have the same abilities as we have. And then I also highlighted, you know, computing impacts personal, ethical, social, economic, and cultural practices. These are things that students need to understand, the influence that their designs might have on the greater world. So what does that look like in practice?
Okay, so what you're seeing here actually came from a special day that we had this past April, actually. We had something called an Innovation Day here in our county, and what you're seeing are students from different schools who are engaging in this day. Basically, these students are creating with social good in mind. So as Sue was mentioning, that's really something that's huge as creators, and as we're talking about being citizens in the digital world, how can we contribute rather than always just consuming? How are we going to create and put things out there for other people and make sure it's accessible? So for us, what we're learning is these students who you're seeing on the screen now, they're creating with their own identities in mind, but also the identity of those around them. So some of them said, I really want to create something that can help my grandma remember to take her medicine. Maybe we could share this with the hospital. So we need to have it so that it makes a sound, but also we want it to light up and flash, because what if the person can't hear as well? So these students that you see here are all elementary school students creating using programming. They were actually programming using a microbit. So a lot of our students in the county use microbit as the physical computing device, and we are having them do it for social good. So can we go to the next slide, Sue?
Yeah.
Thank you. So this is where we started, though. It was more of teaching them about the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, and saying, hey, let's take a look at this and see what's important to you. So again, that student agency, that pulling in from what they really love and allowing them to have an equitable experience, because it's about them and about what they want to do for more than them. So yes, it's about them, but going beyond just the self. So they would choose one of these goals and say, I really want to work on no poverty in my area. I noticed that we have a lot of people around our school that seem like they could use a little bit more support. How can I help them? So I love it because it gets our students and our creators thinking, and not just them, their teachers as well. They're kind of getting into their students' minds and seeing, oh, my students really have a passion for this, or they want to help the world with this. So I think it's a great start, especially seeing elementary school students do this is just phenomenal. To see their ideas and the way they would like to help heal the world, it's just amazing. So that's my little bit on that.
What do you can you say something about these sustainable development goals and where they come from? And you didn't make these up, right?
I didn't make these up. No, these are the United Nations. So it was the United Nations. It was a group effort of individuals who came together and said, hey, these are 17 goals that we as a global community should really take a look at because we're having issues in all these areas across the world. So how can we support individuals with these different things? And it's just so amazing that people are able to come together and say, hey, let's make this the focus to make the world much better, not just myself or my own community, which is what we want to get our creators thinking about as they're working in those digital spaces.
Yeah, this isn't just about making to make. This is about making with a purpose. This is about, creating with an end in mind, right? And in a meaningful way. And so, by having your students create with an audience in mind and having something, it's just much more meaningful if they're able to put their designs into practice, right? And give them a shot. I kind of took a different spin on this idea of, of designing for the larger community. And I kind of took a little like news and media literacy spin on this, where I looked at a lesson called Clicks for Cash. And in this lesson, you have students understanding what clickbait is. I'm sure all of us experience clickbait, right? When we are in our, in our apps and we're in our social media, we see little advertisements or we get tricked by a headline all the time. Not tricked, but brought in, right? And I wanted our students to have an understanding of like what happens every time you click on something, especially if it's something that is a headline that's kind of meant to lead to false information, right? And why people do it. This lesson is all about what is clickbait, what is misinformation, and how do people make money using, something like Google AdSense when people click on your website. And so I just wanted students to have an understanding kind of on the flip side a little bit about the more nefarious purposes of this, so that they can be aware of the ways in which people use some design and creation for maybe some false purposes. And so I put in this lesson here about clickbait, and the dilemma that's associated with it is this one. And it says, John makes his living by hosting several fake news sites. The name of the sites look and sound legitimate. Well, it might be like abcnews.com, something like COMM. And they're completely made up and filled with untrue stories written just to get people to click on them. He buys ad space on other sites and places the stories as clickbait. Every time someone clicks on his stories, he earns money. And some of his headlines have been shared millions of times on social media and have gotten even more clicks and impressions. So the question that I ask my students is, does John have the right to make money and spread false information? Or should he have a responsibility to be accurate and not spread disinformation? So the question is, does he have the right? So I'm going to ask all of you to just kind of maybe take a little poll here. And so if you are in this Menti, you can vote, no, he does not have the right, or yes, he has the right. So, I think, it's maybe it's the discussion that you have around this, right? Does he have the right? Maybe that's up to you all to make that determination. Just because he has the right, does that mean that he ethically should be doing this, right? It's a different, you can have these conversations with your students about, what's legal and what's ethical, right? And so these are the kinds of conversations that I want to have with our creators. Just because you can't doesn't mean you should. Exactly, right? And, he has the right, but ethically he probably shouldn't. These are the kind of conversations we have in our classrooms to get our students to understand their responsibilities as creators and what they need to look out for in the world when it comes to the ways in which they consume. So thank you so much for your participation in John's, our ethical dilemma here with John, right? So it's a 45-minute lesson. It's a larger lesson that you can get really deep into this and learn more about this. And you can watch a whole video about how Google AdSense works and see actual creators who do this and what it means, like a whole town in Macedonia that this video is all about. It's fascinating. It's really fascinating. That's great. So I'll see if I can get back to this presentation. And then the other piece that I put in here was about, can media be addictive? And anybody who is on social media, any of us who have one of these really nice phones and gets notifications and alerts and like, ooh, someone wrote about you. I'm watching it right now. Like Twitter is saying, ooh, Sue, somebody mentioned you in their tweet. And I'm like, ooh, what is it? What is it, right? Can it be addictive? Of course, we all know that we love to hear, that people are thinking of us, right? And that our phone wants our attention all the time. And so we talk to our students. There's a lesson here about what are aspects of addictive design that are intended to hook a user into coming back all the time, even when they're busy doing something else, and what are aspects of humane design, and what are features of a device or an app that prioritize what's connections and the good things about a person's life, and try to enhance that. And in this lesson, students are asked to critique some of these apps that we have, and what are some of the ways in which these designs are meant to bring us back, and how would you possibly improve this? And so I just wanted to mention that, that particular lesson, because I thought, that's very relevant here as we have our creators, right? Anything else? I don't know. That's something you might teach, Teresa?
This definitely aligns with, what we teach, especially when our students create. So as you were saying that too, I was thinking about, we do an app design project with them where they design apps. And maybe this has something in there where there's a timer that says, hey, you've been looking at your device for X amount of minutes, it's time for a break, or something like that. Like, just considering that, screen time can do things to you. You need to take a little break from it and go outside and breathe for, whatever. They could develop an app that does that. And it's supporting more than just them. It's thinking about how we can use our technology, in a way that provides more balance, I guess.
Yeah. I remember Twitter used to ask me, like, I'd see something and I'd go retweet it, and it would say, like, you didn't even read this article. Are you sure you want to retweet it? And I'm like, oh, you caught me. Like, I just read the headline. I didn't even click on this whole thing. Like, oh, yeah. That's so smart, right? So just building in some of that friction that, that allows us to, to think before we post, right? And so that another piece here that I just wanted to share is how important it is for our students to understand privacy. And it's one thing for us to say, these are privacy laws. Here is how we follow these privacy laws, and make sure you keep your information private, right? We can have them sign their AUP and do this. But it's another thing for students to understand what that means and why it's important and how that impacts their lives. And so I put in a lesson here. First I'll hit those CSTA standards. Don't forget, these are all part of our standards. It has to be like how personal information is protected, like the trade-offs. This is what I think is fascinating. We have a couple of lessons about big data that are within the common sense lessons. And it's about the trade-offs between allowing that information to be collected, that data to be collected from the apps, and the convenience that it allows us as users. Because I love it when my phone remembers my password or remembers who I am, and then I don't have to put it in again, right? And if the phone was not collecting that information, then I'd have to put it in every single time. So sometimes, the privacy trade-off is for convenience for some of us, and sometimes, the company really wants that data because they want to be able to improve the product, right? So there are trade-offs. It's not all black and white, all, you must keep everything private and secure and never give any information. And then what are some of the social implications of privacy, right? What does that mean for some of us and our habits and a democracy, right? And the ways in which we consume things. So yeah, and we asked students to address various scenarios in our pieces. So if you're looking for scenarios to address to fulfill that standard, we got them. All right, so I just put the link in there, and I'll share, I'll share these in the slides. But not only do we have all of our privacy lessons, kindergarten through 12th grade, in the Common Sense content, but we also have a training course. Okay, you can't really see that part, but it says training course for educators, student privacy, right? What does it mean if you are a teacher? A lot of times teachers don't understand this too. So do teachers somehow need a little bit of a primer on what is student data and how do you maintain its privacy? That's why I put that in there for you too. So if you as a teacher need a primer on student data privacy, I put a link there to a course, a 1-hour course about student data privacy in there as well. But let me give you this example. This is 4th grade, right? And understanding private and personal information is huge for our students. And so this is one of my favorite lessons. And I'm going to ask you all some questions. All right, so for each statement that's read, that I read to you, I want you to give me a thumbs up if this is true for you, right? So if you have 2 or more siblings, give me a thumbs up, right? So I see a couple of you. Oh, there's many of you. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Okay. If you speak another language besides English at home, give me a heart. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So some of you speak many languages at home. Oh, not everybody. Okay. So that's really interesting. So if I ask my students to do this, if you have a pet at home, give me the question mark if you can. Does that work? Yeah. Oh, yes. So many of you have pets. All right. So when I do this with students, like I'm asking fourth grade students, and they're just supposed to do this silently, right? They stand up or they sit down. And what I follow this with is the human brain is wired to want to share with others. As students are doing this, right? As you guys are doing this, I'm like, ooh, I wonder what kind of pets they have, right? I want to ask you about your pets. I want to ask you what language you speak. I want to ask you about your siblings. Like, whoa, you really have a lot of siblings? Like, wow, you come from a family of 3 or more? Wow, like you come from 9. That's amazing, right? Your brain gets excited when you make that connection with others. We are wired to connect with others and we want to share. Some of us more than others, right? Some of us are big sharers and some of us are not such big sharers. But sharing has a lot of benefits when we share all this information. It helps you feel good. It helps us learn. It helps us connect with others, right? Like sharing is a good thing. And I know our students want to talk about the things that they love online, but sometimes, you know, some information is not okay to share, right? And so we would watch this video to talk about what is private, what is personal information, how do you discern the difference, what's okay to share. So it's not just about, locking down our students and saying, don't share any information about yourself. Sometimes information is okay to share. And it's stuff that's identifiable and can lead back to you. That is the difficult part. So we have to teach our students what's okay to share and what's not, right? So if you share, I love pizza. No, millions of people across the world like pizza, right? So that's never going to be able to be traceable back to you. So that's okay to share, right? So that's the kind of information that we want our students to understand is what is the difference. So that is, one example of a privacy lesson that I thought would be interesting. Yeah. So this other little piece here, copyright, and it sounds kind of dry and boring, right? But I don't know. Do you teach copyright ever, Teresa? Do you know, like, I don't know, how do you talk about this? Or why do you talk about it?
Well, I talk about it when we're creating something. So if students want to use an image that they find online, the whole piece of citing where they're getting their work for our images from, or even information. So it's that whole research component. And I know here it's tied into our language arts standards, I think as early as 3rd grade, where they're starting to do that research and they're tying it into their writing, but also as digital learners, they're also building out slide decks or creating websites or whatever, and they want to add in those different pieces of media. So that's it. And also for like our students who develop an app, they want to add images in there and text and all kinds of things that they're like, oh, I found this online. And it's like, but where'd you get it from? And are you citing it? Because if you're not, you could get into some trouble for that. So we've had those conversations time and time again. And, they even start to call each other out. Oh, you copied that. You're going to get in trouble. You have to pay a fine. I'm like, oh, you guys are listening.
So I think that's what we think of. I always think of that when it comes to copyright and citation and fair use, is like, don't take other people's stuff, right? That's huge, right? We don't want to take other people's stuff without citing and giving them credit, or, without asking permission, or, sometimes things are copyrighted and you can't use it. Let's flip that. Your students are now creators. Your students are now creators who have rights, right? And when they make something, and eventually they're going to make something amazing that other people are going to want to take, they don't want people to take it from them, right? So how do we help our students understand that they have rights as creators, and that the reason that copyright exists is so that our creators can have their work protected. So your work is protected as a maker, as a musician, as a poet, as a coder, right? Like, your work is protected. And so you need to understand what your rights are. And so I put in a lesson here, so obviously we have the standards here about giving attribution, understanding what is public domain and Creative Commons, and how did those licenses work? Because those people don't mind if their stuff is used. They put it out there for you to use, right? Because they want to see you use it in their work. Give them a citation. You know, what is intellectual property rights? And, you know, how do you make sure that, you know, what are the beneficial and harmful effects of intellectual property laws on innovation? How are we trying to make things that move our, you know, move our innovation forward? And so I just threw in like a second grade lesson about let's give credit. And you give your students a scenario in which they have to make something, they have to create something. And then, you know, you have them practice, what does it look like to give credit, right? Or, you know, why is giving credit for, you know, for the information you find on the internet the right thing to do? How would it make you feel if you were the creator and somebody took your stuff? Right? You know, so there are multiple lessons in here about, you know, when you are the creator, you want credit. And, you know, how do you give that credit to others and give them the accolades they deserve for their good stuff? So I just wanted to mention copyright because there's gobs of copyright lessons out there. We have a bunch and there's plenty of others out there, but it is important for our students who are creators to have that understanding, not just so they don't get in trouble, but so they understand their own rights. And this last piece here that I just wanted to share is your students need to be aware they're not just creators, they're consumers of information. And we are all on our devices, we are all, you know, learning together. They need to understand the influence that media and technology has on them. And so when it comes to things like, you know, the bias that comes with different algorithms specifically, or, you know, about the culture that we live in, right? Like when it comes, I threw in these three here. These are all part of our news and media literacy lessons. And, you know, one here is about like, why are conspiracy theories so appealing? Like, why do people latch on to them? But the one I wanted to focus on right now is about algorithms. Now, I know you have a lot of opinions about algorithms, and the ways like, so this idea that you know, I don't know how many millions of hours of YouTube videos there are uploaded every single day, right? And whenever I go on YouTube has to show me something. It can't show me those millions of hours, right? It's got to be able to pick something, and it picks something by using this algorithm. And you know, how does that algorithm work, and how is it used to serve me the content that I'm going to find most relevant? And what are the benefits of that algorithm? You know, serving me stuff that I find is very helpful, and things that I'm going to really be interested in. But then how does that also sometimes cause me to fall down a rabbit hole and only have this tunnel vision when it comes to the kinds of content that I'm creating? There's a whole video here. And this we made in conjunction with our partners at KQED, and it explains algorithms and some of the benefits and how they work, but also some of the drawbacks. And then it has our students think about how those algorithms have an impact on their own identity, on their community, and the greater world. Specifically, it's looking in this election year, right? You know, how is it that it looks at democracy specifically? So I threw in that link in there as well, because I just wanted to point that one out. I don't know if you guys ever talk about algorithms in your work as your students are creators, but you know, what else do they do?
You know, I think you're bringing up some interesting topics too. There's a lot that we like to study here with algorithmic bias and how, so I'm thinking of it now from the creator's standpoint. There are students as computer scientists, and the fact that there are biases in algorithms, a lot of those biases have to do with who the creators are, and the fact that it's not really a super diverse playing field. There's not the people who are creating don't always have the same kind of background or the knowledge of all the people who are consuming. So sometimes the different algorithms that are populating are doing so based on a mindset that's completely different than what yours or mine might be. So we're being exposed to all these other things that may not really relate to us so much, but we're still taking it in. But it's very interesting, the fact that, you know, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, okay, we've got to get more students involved in computer science and let them see themselves in this field, because we definitely need more creators who are different. So that way these algorithms can suit the needs that people really need, you know? So just some food for thought. But it's something I think about a lot as I'm working with our young people and just thinking, you guys need to do this. You got to change this because we can't keep having the same people's ideas only over and over again. There are so many of us out there who have so much to contribute.
Yep,
So
we need diverse folks designing our world, right?
mhm.
So I think that's, that all of these lessons that I mentioned today are all part of the digital citizenship lessons that we have at Common Sense. There's also kind of 15-minute versions of a lot of this content as well. So if you don't have time for a full 45 or you just want to taste, if you want to sample it, then there are, I put a link in there to these quick activities. And so I put in here that a link to all of these. But before I do this, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to get back to this in just one second. But before I do this, I want to ask you, where are you going to start to connect digital citizenship with computer science, right? So what's your first thought when it comes to, where will you begin? Which of these 5 pieces, where's the first way that you see a natural connection between digital citizenship and computer science? How are you going to be bringing digital citizenship into the lives of your students? Yes, privacy is a great place to start. And so it's easy to start talking about their own lives, right? Their own lives as students, and protecting their own privacy and making sure that their safety is something that is first and foremost. And then get them to think about it as creators, right? As those who are making those pieces in the world. That influence is huge. Yeah, that's social good. See, all these good things. So I hope that we were able to give you some of these ideas today about building that better foundation, building some of that context, and sharing some of these ideas with your students. And then I'll go back and I'll share with you the QR code in just a second, as soon as we get there. Hey, Teresa.
Hello.
All right. So I'm going to jump back so thank you all for sharing. I'm going to jump back into this other slide and give you guys the QR code for the whole slide deck and all the resources. So I think it's in my previous slide.
I think it was.
Oh yeah, there you go. So that'll take you there, the QR code for the presentation slide. So that should do it for you. And in there, you should have everything.
Thank you so much, Sue and Teresa. I really enjoyed that. That was great. I was actually Googling a couple of things that you wrote on the side, that you talked about. So thank you. My name is Teresa Poprack. I'm the Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Learning.com. I want to thank all of you for joining us and thank again our great speakers today. And as a reminder, we'll send out a link to the recording, so be on the lookout for that. You can share it with other folks and watch it again yourself to get all of this good information. I would like to share a little bit with you about Learning.com's products. As Abby mentioned at the beginning of our webinar, Learning.com offers the most comprehensive digital literacy skills and computer science curriculum on the market, and we work with fabulous partners like Common Sense Education. All of our digital literacy and computer science content is aligned to national and state computer science standards, which makes it really easy for districts to ensure that schools and teachers are teaching to the ISTE, CSTA, or specific technology and computer science standards required by their state. We have 2 product lines. Our Easy Tech curriculum features interactive lessons, gamified content, and adaptive sequencing. It has hands-on collaborative projects. It has modifications for when students are unplugged. And our digital citizenship and online safety modules include content from Common Sense Education. Easy Code is a scaffolded coding curriculum that features hands-on practice, gamified content, and real-world projects. And it allows for either synchronous or asynchronous delivery for traditional, online, and hybrid environments. To learn more about any of these products, you can, of course, visit our website, or you can contact us at sales@learning.com. I'd like to make one final plug for our Twitter contest. Don't forget to participate for a chance to win our swag bag, which is pretty cool. We'd love to hear about what computer science means to you, your students, and your school. Thanks again for joining us. Have a wonderful Computer Science Education Week.